We have a veteran and beloved Lifestyle Magazine family member joining us today. No stranger to our viewers, Dr. John McDougall was one of our original co-hosts. His success and passion for making people well inspired us to produce 3 seasons of his own spinoff show, John McDougall MD. He calls himself the luckiest doctor in the world because his patients get well. But Dr. McDougall's passions have been eclipsed, forced to widen to encompass a grander vision, helping to protect and preserve Mother Earth. I'm excited to learn more about all of this right alongside you. I'm your host, Roy Ice, and this is Lifestyle Magazine.
This is Lifestyle Magazine with your hosts, Roy Ice, Mike Tucker, Dr. Sharmini Long, OBDK, and Lionel LaMountain.
I'm Dr. Sharmini Long, and it's a privilege today to be able to interview Dr. John McDougall, who is one of the original hosts of Lifestyle Magazine. Dr. McDougall, thank you for joining us today.
Well, it's nice to be here. It brings back a lot of memories.
Wonderful. You've had a long career in medicine over the years, doing many things, but you kind of got off to a rocky start at age 18 when you were introduced to medicine a little bit more personally. Tell us about that.
Well, at 18 years old, I suffered a massive stroke, which happens to about 1,000 teenagers a year in the United States. And not that it didn't deserve it. You know, the way I ate, I can see now that I was just, piling the cholesterol fat into my arteries that supplied my brain. And for the last 56 years, I've walked with a pretty significant limp because of that stroke. But also, it gave me a pathway to get into medicine. Prior to my personal introduction to the hospital, I didn't think I could become a doctor. I didn't think I was that kind of a person. To me, in our family, doctors were next to God. And I wasn't that quality of person. I was just a regular old person. And I got spent 2 weeks in Grace Hospital in Detroit, Michigan, because of the stroke I had. And that at least made me aware of the medical profession and that I really, really would love to be a doctor. And my orientation was to become a doctor with my interest in science. And, there were just many things I could look back and see how I was heading in that direction. But I still ate a terrible diet that didn't change my diet until I was about 24 years old.
Now, your early career, as you started out as a doctor, you actually worked, if I understand correctly, as a doctor on a sugar plantation in Hawaii. What did you learn in your early years?
Well, I learned everything. I mean, I had the opportunity to take care of 5,000 people, and I was it. I mean, you had an emergency pregnancy in the middle of the night, I was your doctor. You had fell off a truck and needed brain surgery in the middle of the night, I was your doctor.
Wow.
So I can tell you, I had to take care of every single problem my 5,000 patients had for me. And it gave me a great background. But it also taught me about how to eat differently. On the sugar plantation, I was taking care of first, second, third, and fourth generation Filipinos, Japanese, Chinese, and Koreans. And the first generation had learned a diet of rice and vegetables. Then they moved to Hawaii and started a new life, had children, grandchildren, et cetera. What I observed was the first generation had none of the problems that I was trained to take care of in terms of chronic disease. No obesity, no diabetes, no rheumatoid arthritis, no breast cancer, no multiple sclerosis, no colon cancer. They were a relatively healthy population of people, and they lived on a diet of rice and vegetables. Now their kids, they were influenced by McDonald's and all the other fast food restaurants. They learned the American diet with enthusiasm, and they got a little fatter and sicker. And by the time you got to the grandkids, I was taking care of people that were just as fat and sick as anybody I'd taken care of all over the United States. So it wasn't anything genetic. It wasn't good luck or bad luck. It was the food. It's the food.
So you pretty quickly correlated that when you were watching your patients that you were taking care of.
I did. I could see that you didn't have to get older and sick as the years went by. You didn't have to age ungracefully and become ill, which is, it's so common that you expect that to be normal. So I at least saw that. I saw an alternative, but I didn't know that you could reverse disease until I went back into training and I became a board certified internist. And then I found that the scientific literature not only told the same story, that when you switch from a starch-based diet, a diet of rice, potatoes, corn, to a diet of meat and dairy, you get fat and sick, just like the aristocrats of old. So I learned that as a plantation doctor when I got back into the medical system, and I got back into the medical library. I discovered that my knowledge was in no way new. In fact, you can go back to the first chapter of Daniel in the Bible, and you could talk about the next stage in my learning, and that it was that not only can you prevent, but you can cure people of serious ailments if you take away what causes their illness. And the scientific literature is overwhelmed with research that says such. Not only are these diseases caused by the Western diet, but when you stop feeding people the Western diet, in other words, you put them back on a traditional diet of rice, corn, potatoes, vegetables, and fruits, they're cured of, most of their chronic illnesses. There, of course, are some problems that are beyond repair that people suffer from, but it's amazing how few and how well that they get when they make this simple dietary change, which costs nothing, by the way, has no side effects, is totally under the patient's control. Just doesn't fit with the medical business, does it, folks?
Well, it also goes against some of the things I keep hearing with, for example, the keto diet and stay away from the starches, stay away from the carbs. What are your thoughts about the current fads?
That's silly. That's bad thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, look through history, look around the world. What's the kind of diet that people lived on through most of existence of the human race? We're talking about the population of Asia, which lived primarily on rice. Before 1980, 80% of the diet of an Asian was white rice. You're talking about the Aztecs and the Mayans, which lived in civilizations for 1,300 years on corn. You're talking about the people in South America, in the Andes, living on potatoes. You're talking about the bread basket of the world. Do you remember the bread basket of the world? That's where they used to eat wheat and barley. People have always lived on starch-based diets until they become rich. And then when they become rich, they could take the corn and the potatoes and the soybeans and feed them to the cows and the pigs. And then they ate the cows and the pigs. And what happened? They ended up looking like Americans, like kings and queens of old. This is not rocket science, ladies and gentlemen. People are sick because they eat the wrong kind of food and they get well. I mean, I have scientific research published showing that people are able to get off their medications in close to 90% of the time just by changing their diet.
I want to hear more about this scientific data and the results of going the direction you're talking about, but we got to take a break. We'll be right back. And we're back with Dr. John McDougall talking about how we eat and the best diet to eat. Now, Dr. McDougall, you had mentioned that there's some science showing that what you're promoting, a more starch-based diet, actually helps people avoid disease and even cure some. Would you mind sharing some of that with us?
Well, I could fill a medium to large size library with the science. Unfortunately, the science is ignored. And the reason it's ignored is because it's worthless. What I'm talking about is profitless. It's very valuable to the patient, but the patient's not in charge of the system. And so what gets picked out are the profitable drugs, the profitable procedures, et cetera. People are sick because of food poisoning. That's why they're suffering from diabetes, obesity, various kinds of cancers, heart diseases. This is just plain and simple food poisoning. And all you have to do is correct the cause of the problem. People get well. We have 3 major studies published on our work. One was based on 1,703 people that went through my 10-day live-in program. Another was done by Oregon Health and Science University, which studied people who went through our 10-day program. And the third was an independent study done in New Zealand on our program. It was a 1-year-long program. And what we show is that the average drop in cholesterol in 7 days is 22 points, and it's maintained over a year long, that drop in cholesterol. The average drop in weight is about 3 to 4 pounds in 7 days, and people are able to maintain a weight loss of nearly 20 pounds at the end of a year.
Wow.
So, we've got some pretty amazing results. Again, uncriticized. They shouldn't be criticized because they're observations that have been true, like I say, back until the time of Daniel. People are sick from eating the king's food.
I think there's so much conflicting information out there. I see patients every day who are so confused as to what to eat. They want to eat right and eat healthy for themselves, and they're just bombarded with the internet and so many things that have totally conflicting information about how to eat. What would your advice be to someone who is starting out trying to eat healthy? What is the first thing they should start doing?
You need to realize that you're a starch eater, a starchitarian, a starchivore. That means about 90% of your plate should be filled with rice, as it has been with Asians, with corn, as it was once for people in Central America, as potatoes, it's been in South America. Starch needs to be the primary part of your meal plan. Unfortunately, the protein promoting industries, and protein is the most negative nutrient that I could possibly pick. There's no such thing as protein deficiency. And the belief that all this protein is good for us is what is at the heart of causing us to be ill. We're buying into a nutritional principle that's entirely wrong. There's no such thing as protein deficiency. You've never seen it. Yet everything you see is selling you protein. And then there's another counterpart to that. And that's the idea that starches make you fat. Like where? Like where? In Asia? A whole bunch of fat Chinese? Like where do they make you fat? I've never seen it. So because of the misinformation people have, they don't stand a chance. And as a result, we've got a population of people where over 80% of the people living in the United States are ill. They're either overweight, obese, they have heart disease, high blood pressure, etc. We could go on. These are your neighbors, ladies and gentlemen. It's simple food poisoning. And the nice thing is, and when you stop poisoning yourself, you get well. And that's what my practice is based on. We used to run a resort. Then we switched from a resort to a telemedicine, telehealth program. So we take care of people all over the world. And it's been more successful than even what I told you about our reports from our living clinic. The 22-point drop in cholesterol in 7 days, the 20-pound weight loss in a year. We're getting such phenomenal results by taking care of people in their own home these days. And plus, we've reduced the cost of the program by about 1/3 or 2/3. We reduced it.
You mentioned protein, and I think that's a question that people have a lot. So how many grams of protein should people actually have in a day?
Well, it depends on how active they are. Their diet should be about 5% protein, maybe 7%. Typical American diet would be 16%. You go on the Atkins diet, it's 30 to 40% of calories is protein, which is, you're getting a lethal level of protein intake. So, as I say, have you ever seen a case of protein deficiency? Human breast milk, the greatest time of growth in a human being's life is 5% protein at a time when you're not supposed to be growing in size, but many of you are. You're eating a lot more protein than you'd eat from breast milk from your mother, which is, no one would argue that's ideal food. It is, anyway, it's ridiculous beyond the point of comprehension. It is insanity. But I've been on Lifestyle Magazine for almost over 30 years, and I've been preaching the same message. And dare say, very few people have changed, but they will. That's coming up here in the next segment. They will change.
Well, thank you for sharing that. We do have a lot more to talk about in the next segment, and we'll be right back after this. When it comes to preventing and fighting off colds, vitamin E tends to take a back seat to vitamin C. However, this powerful antioxidant is key to a healthy immune system. Nuts such as almonds are packed with vitamin E and also have healthy fats. Adults only need about 15 milligrams of vitamin E each day. A half cup serving of almonds provides 100% of the recommended daily amount. Welcome back. We've been talking with Dr. McDougall about health. Dr. McDougall, I understand that you've had some recent trauma in your own life. Can you talk to us about that?
Oh, my life has been full of all kinds of exciting events. We lost our everything material October of 2017, the wildfires that hit up in the Santa Rosa area. And it was quite traumatic, to say the least, but I can't say we suffered more than a lot of other people did. And it gave me some new opportunities. Losing our home gave us a chance to move to another part of the country, gave us a chance to experience some different things. But it didn't do much to intensify my interest that I hold these days. That started 17 years ago when my first grandchild was born. And at about the same time, Al Gore told us about the inconvenient truth that planet Earth was burning in hell, and that we weren't even able, we better get busy. We're not going to be able to save ourselves. Well, that was 17 years ago that Al Gore told me that. It was 17 years ago I had my first grandchild. It was 17 years ago that the World Health Organization told us that a major cause of planetary destruction is the livestock industry. So I've been spending my time trying to do whatever I can to open up people's eyes to the fact that we can control our destiny by changing our diet. The difference in environmental impact between raising beef as opposed to a potato is 100-fold. You know, we can drop the greenhouse gas production by somewhere between 50 and 80% almost overnight with a change to a vegan diet. But unfortunately, nobody's looking at this particular point of view. They're looking at electric cars, sure. Solar panels, that's great. We need to have all kinds of energy besides fossil fuel. But we are eating the planet to death. And that's what I have spent my time on, and what I'll spend the rest of my years on, is trying to get this very personal concept over to people. People don't want to talk about it. They'll talk about their electric cars. They'll talk about almost anything. They'll even talk about politics and religion before they talk about the food on their plate. And sad to say, what I see is people are willing to let the planet burn in hell rather than to give up their meat and dairy. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you asked me a minute ago, are people changing? And how do we get them to change? They are going to change. Either we can do it by our own choice, and we can determine how things go by getting people around the world to eat responsibly, to stop being gluttons, or the world is going to change us, because that's all that's going to be available. You'll be lucky if you get rice, corn, and potatoes at your dinner table within the next few years. We have an opportunity here. It's not just the chronic diseases, the diabetes, the high blood pressure, the heart disease, the obesity that I've been treating my whole medical career. I've been at this for half a century. It's the planet. The major thing that we can do to save the planet is to change the population's diet to a diet based on starch, to a vegan kind of diet. We can make all the difference in the world. And you know what? That's also the diet that keeps people from going on to severe complications of COVID, the pandemic that we're suffering right now. If you listen to the stories from the researchers, only those people who are overweight with diabetes, high blood pressure that they get from eating the Western diet go on to the hospitalizations, to the ventilators, to dying. Those are the people who suffer the major complications. So, ladies and gentlemen, you haven't found a reason to change because of the constipation, the indigestion, all the pills you have to take, the planet coming up. Hey, I got one more for you. This pandemic is not going to stop. It's called COVID-19 now. It'll be called COVID-19 XYZ variant next. Because of global warming, because of the change in the planet, microbes are being turned loose all over the world. This is not going to stop. But we have answers. Public health measures, which we all should be practicing, and getting our diet straight around, which will, it solves the major problems that we're facing in the next 50 years.
Now, Dr. McDougall, you're really passionate about people not eating the protein, the burgers. The problem is the access. There's fast food restaurants at every corner. How do you help people change, and what's their experience like changing over to the diet that you prescribe?
I've spent my whole career focusing on just that point. In fact, the first book I ever wrote was called Making the Change. It wasn't called Heal and Stay Healthy. It was called Making the Change, because that's the problem, to get people to do it. And I've spent 35 years on Lifestyle Magazine. I've had my own program, McDougall MD, put on by you folks. I have had residential programs where I lock people up for 10, 12, 14 days and make them do it. right now I have the most effective way to deal with people and to help them make their changes. And that is a telemedicine. We go right into your home with our doctors and we deal with your medical problems. And our support specialists, they go right into your home in the morning, see what you're having for breakfast, see what your blood sugar is, your blood pressure, how you feeling today. You know, education, we have gotten, I don't know whether it's going to end up being the best we've ever come up with, but I'll tell you, COVID-19 sure did some positive things in our lives. It got us out of running a residential clinic at a resort in Santa Rosa to where we can affect the entire world. So when you're ready, we're ready for you.
That's awesome. We only got about 10 seconds. What's the best way for people to connect with your advice?
DrMcDougall.com. That's my name, John McDougall. It's DrMcDougall.com. DrMcDougall.com. Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
It's been half my life I've spent with you.
Well, we love you, and thank you so much for the time that you spent with us. We have absolutely enjoyed our time together, and I hope that you'll stick around, because right after this, we're going to come back. I have a few closing remarks I'd like to share. Dr. John McDougall's perspectives are both compelling and challenging to us today. But one thing is clear: we all have to take individual responsibility for our personal wellness. Perhaps we can experiment over the next couple of weeks, lowering our intake of animal protein and just seeing how that makes us feel as we strive to live our best life possible.
For more meaningful life tips and an opportunity to view this show and all other episodes, visit our website at lifestyle.org. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to continuing this journey with you on future episodes of Lifestyle Magazine.